So financial planning is likely a key piece of your the value you provide to your clients and the service that you provide to your clients. So it makes sense that you want to optimize that process, both so that you're doing things efficiently on your end, but also that you're providing the best outcome for clients that you can. So today, on the final session of the Building a Better Advisory Business series, we are going to be providing you with some tips and some tools to do those things. So if you missed any of the previous sessions of this series, you can go to horsesmouth.com/betterbiz in order to watch those. And this series is a build up to Debbie Taylor's upcoming practice management workshop from July 19th to the 22nd. And if you want to go ahead and find out some more information about that workshop, like I said, it is coming right up. Go to horsesmouth.com/new normal to check it out. And that link to that is also in the description beneath this live stream player. So the question I want to ask you guys to kind of tee this off is, do you currently have any pain points around your financial planning process, something that you're just not happy with how it goes or how clients receive it, or you know that you could be doing more in a certain area or doing things better, but it's just not coming together? Go ahead and let us know in chat. We would love to hear it. And at this point, I'll now hand things over to Sean Bailey, Horses Mouth Editor-in-Chief, and Debra Taylor of the Taylor Financial Group. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Doug. Hello, Debbie.
Hello. Good morning.
To the audience, so yeah, what most frustrates you about your current planning process? I'm particularly interested in that. And even I'll just add on one additional question about, I'm curious to hear people's reactions to this. Do you have a difficult time getting clients to provide you with the information you might need to jointly with them develop a budget? Because I've sensed that that having a true picture of your client's expenses makes for a more realistic plan that therefore is able to achieve its goals in a more realistic manner. But I have heard some over the years that this is a tricky issue, getting clients to come up with the numbers that they're spending on a monthly basis. And I think there's a variety of reasons for that. And Debbie, we can jump in that in a little bit, but I just wanted to put that out there for the audience. Debbie, why don't you've been in the business since 1990, when did you start? 1997 or something like that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you came over from the CPA. I came over from the CPA side. And tell us a little bit about that transition and where did you see coming out of the CPA space? Where did you see at that point in time what your likely value proposition would be? I know you had some interest in investment management, but yeah, how did you view your value proposition at that point in time, and where did the idea of financial planning fit into that?
Yeah, so remember, this was 25 years ago, which was literally the Stone Ages. We had none of this sophisticated software that we have now, but coming at it as a CPA, I was acutely aware of the need for retirement planning, the need to consider taxes, the need to look at cash flow, right? I mean, that's what a CPA does. And so my background then lent itself to it, even though I didn't have the tools. And so basically back then it was literally back of the envelope, right? It was Excel, and it was just basically manual calculations. So that's what we did back then. And of course, we've come a long way since.
Well, at that point in time, what would be a typical financial planning issue that you might spot with a client?
Well, the same.
Because your clients weren't necessarily, the makeup of your early clients probably were not as heavily tilted to retirees and pre-retirees then as they are now. Is that correct?
No, I mean, they were typically retirees and pre-retirees. They just honestly weren't as wealthy as they are now. I mean, that is the difference. Because I was 28 years old. So yesterday I pitched a $33 million client. I mean, I wasn't pitching a $33 million client at 27, right? And so
you've earned the right to do that.
Thank you. But But here's the thing, the same problems from 25 years ago, they're the problems today, right? Can we retire on time? What will our lifestyle look like? Will big medical expenses, eat into it? Will inflation be an issue, right? That was a huge problem back then. And so a lot of the same problems, right? We didn't have the 11-year bull market. We didn't have some of this tax legislation, the Secure Act, right? So we didn't have some of these stumbling blocks that have really just presented themselves within the last couple of years. But a lot of sort of those more general concerns were the same concerns back then. Unfortunately, back then, we didn't have the software, the level of thought or analysis, and we didn't have the attention to it that we do now, right? And so that's the difference.
I also think there has been an explosion of the personal finance press, where people are, and now everywhere they go, they open their their iPhone while they're waiting for a doctor's appointment and just scrolling through, and it's everywhere, right? It's on the magazines, the reception desk at the doctor's office. It's on your phone. It's on the radio. It's on TV, and there's a highly saturated environment where clients or prospects are hearing financial planning content. But what were the what do you see as over the years now, more recently, common mistakes or challenges that advisors are facing from your perspective when it comes to the issue of having financial planning as part of their value proposition to their clients?
Yeah, so there's a lot of mistakes there, right? I would say the first one is not making it central to your practice, right? So in the practice management workshop that I'm teaching next week, one of the sections is make planning the cornerstone of your practice. And I've been teaching that concept for years now, right? I mean, for years and years, right? So planning's got to be the cornerstone of your practice. And if you think of it that way, then you're going to invest in the software, the training of your team, right? You're going to really build out that infrastructure, the processes. And so I think then the next thing sort of follows is, if you're not thinking of planning as the cornerstone of your practice, and it's not to say that we're not doing investment management, we're not going there, but we're saying, like, you've got to think of it as a critical leg of your stool. And if you think of it as a critical leg of your stool, then the next step is to really invest in that. And I think a lot of advisors don't invest in it the way they do, because traditionally it hasn't been a critical part of the practice. And so it's very hard then to sort of change gears 20 years into your practice, right? The average advisor is like 57 years old, right? So you've been doing this for 25 years, just like me, right? I'm 55. It's hard then to change gears after you've been doing things a certain way and say, hey, we need to buy all these software. We need to hire team members. We need to train them. We need to change our marketing. We need to update our website, right? I mean, we need to create the processes. So we have somebody writing in, right, George, and he's saying, I need a checklist for deliverables. Yes, this is Max Abilian. He likes to join our webinars. And so these things are all critical to delivering this product and making it a cornerstone of your practice. And I see a lot of advisors not doing that. The other thing is, let me just mention one other thing also, is the planning can be very technical. I call it yeoman's work, okay? It's unscalable. It's not in and of itself profitable, which again is why it doesn't get the marquee letter that it should, right? It's because who wants to lead with planning? Who wants to dedicate all these resources to it? Because it looks like just money, time, resources going out, and none coming in. And maybe that's true, like literally on that day. So now you take something that's not scalable, that is very tedious, very laborious, right? And there's a lot of technical part of it. And if you don't then approach it thoughtfully, then what are you going to dump a million reports on the client, right? How do you make the experience client friendly? And so that's, then we have a comment here, getting the budget numbers are tough. We have a few folks writing in. And so that's part of the challenge, is that it is unscalable. It is yeoman's work, not just for you, but for the client. So then it's on you to make this as seamless an experience as possible. And that requires a lot of thought and a lot of energy. It just doesn't come naturally to this space.
Right. But was there, going back 20 years ago, was there an expectation with the rise of ETFs and separately managed accounts that advisors, of course, there's always still due diligence, but that the benefit of going with certain types of investment vehicles would be that the advisor could be more efficient with his or her time, and that time would presumably could then be allocated to issues like financial planning, or just more time on the golf course, I guess.
Well, I mean, and that's the problem, right? Is 20 years ago, 10 years ago, managing investments required a lot more time for most of us, right? We didn't have the technology. We didn't have the rebalancing tools. I mean, I remember when we'd want to rebalance, we'd have to create a huge spreadsheet to try to rebalance and then go in every single model. Now I can say to my husband who handles this, hey, we need to rebalance the TFG growth with income model. And, a day later it's done. That afternoon it's done. I mean, there's still some work that has to be done, obviously, but you get the point. Okay. And so, yes, we have achieved some efficiencies. And then the argument is, oh, we'll take those efficiencies because now we have model portfolios. Remember, back then we didn't really have the models. There was account minimums. I mean, I remember to do separately managed accounts, there were account minimums of $500,000, $1 million. Then the account minimums came to 250, then 100, then 50, right? So we didn't have, right? We didn't have models. We didn't have separately managed accounts that were available to the masses. We didn't have the technology for rebalancing. We didn't have the ETFs in the sort of common usage as they are today, right? So there's a lot of things that have helped us to become more efficient in that space, potentially, right? The problem is, to your point, is I don't think we've reallocated our time wisely. I think we've taken those savings and we've pocketed them in many instances, or gone out and hit the golf course. And I think that's one of the reasons that the business is coming under pressure at times, is because people are saying, why are you paying 1% for your advisor to do something that takes them 5 minutes a year? And what advisors need to do then is step up and say, well, no, because I've added all these other services. And some advisors are doing that. So, basically this is an inflection point for the industry. And I've been saying this now for years, right? This is an inflection point. And advisors have to make a choice if they want to run a practice going into the next generation, right? If you just want to, have your current book of clients and sort of let it die with the clients, then that's fine, right? Don't change anything up and just let things atrophy in their natural course, right? You're 65, you're 70, whatever. I mean, to me, I'd still have an issue with that because I think it's a compromise of your professional responsibility to clients, but technically that is an approach. And so you can do that way and hope your clients never figure out that you're basically ripping them off by charging 100 basis points to do very little for them. Or you can step up and be the professional that you need to be and charge that 100 basis points, but deliver all this tremendous value to your clients. And that's the choice we have to make every single day.
So when we're talking about financial planning and, meeting that level of service, what are, I don't want to necessarily go through all the things that you do for your clients, but from your perspective, what are the core things that you think, the core financial planning activities that an advisor, should absolutely be doing to deliver good service, which then delivers on a value proposition, which is also then, pushing back against fee pressure?
Yeah. So I think number one, every valued client should have a financial plan. And I mean a real financial plan, not financial planning light, something that is a meaningful roadmap for them. And so for us, before clients make any critical decisions, we go back to the financial plan and we update it with a what if scenario. Should we buy a second home? Should we help our grandchild through medical school? We don't answer any of those questions unless we go back to the plan, update the plan, and then share that with the client. And so it is a real working, living, breathing document that guides all of our major moves. Okay. So I think we need a real financial plan for the client that is meaningful and that's additive. Second, we've got to get into taxes a little bit. Okay. I think you are doing a tremendous disservice to these clients. Again, if it's $100,000 or $200,000 client, not so much. But I'm saying these larger clients, you're doing a tremendous disservice if you are not addressing tax planning as part of your services to them. And that means then getting those tax returns, running it through Holistiplan or FP Alpha, reporting back to the client on tax saving opportunities or challenges, looking at tax loss trading, tax gain harvesting possibly, Deathbed planning is what we call it, a little macabre. But making sure that our older clients are dying with the gains in their portfolios, that's until Biden changes the laws, right? So I think financial planning that is meaningful and additive, okay, that you are passionate about. The tax planning is critical. I think you need to have conversations with them around estate planning and making sure that's in order as well. Those are, I would tell you, 3 key things to start with.
Right, right. And so over the last decade, how has your process evolved? I gather the technology has been a key issue for how the process has changed.
Yeah. So early on, it was literally Excel, and I mean basic Excel. Okay, super basic Excel. And now we have, a tech stack that has close to 9 pieces of software in it. I know we covered that in our last session, so I know you don't want to necessarily go in depth here, but you're saying, how has it changed? Now we have niche software that addresses every single aspect of this process, and no more Excel. Or very limited use of Excel because it's just too rudimentary a tool, right? And so I would tell you is this niche software and training on it, learning it, and then integrating it into the practice. Another way that it's changed is, years ago, we would just send an email to the client, right? Oh, like, here's your chance of success, or, it's 6% linear because that's all we had back then, right? You're going to end up with $8 million when you die, whatever. Now we present it to the client in a PowerPoint. And so it's not to say that we don't have all those reports. We certainly do. And some clients want those reports. We're happy to share them. But the reports are overwhelming. And you want to make this into a client-friendly experience that your clients want to keep coming back to and understand and feel comfortable. And if you show them a cash flow report that has all the sources of income, it's basically an Excel document, right, within the report, that their eyes glaze over. They don't know what to look at. And so we now have a PowerPoint that we present the reporting to with the clients. So they don't see the reports unless they ask. So that's another big way it's changed, is again, trying to make it a little more client friendly. And then internally, we've built out a lot of processes around how to approach this. And I know there's a question here in the chat from, it looks like George, saying, I need a checklist for deliverables. And so one of the things that was happening is people were coming, we're doing the planning, and again, it's not scalable work. And so Sean might come to us, and let's say Sean has a benefits plan because he works at a large corporation. He has tax stubs, right? He's got all kinds of stuff. And then Doug might come to us, and Doug works for himself, so he doesn't have a benefits plan. And so what would happen is I would worry that we would forget to ask Sean about his benefits plan. And so now we have checklists that literally address all these aspects of it, so we don't forget to ask Sean about his benefits plan. So I would say building out those processes is a big change.
The the promise and the competition among software providers is, I think initially was to run some sort of analysis, and gee, if you could produce a custom 5-page report for your clients, that's great. But if the software could produce a custom 55-page report, that was even better, because 55 pages is clearly more in depth than 5 pages. And there's the sort of plopware arms race that some software analysis engages in, I suppose. And so I'm intrigued by your idea that you create a PowerPoint presentation that I'm sensing is kind of skimming or horizontally across these things and making it more easy for your clients to grasp what it is you're doing for them. But can you just talk a little bit more about how you create that PowerPoint exactly? I'm trying to get like I'm trying to create a visual in my mind of what might be on such a PowerPoint.
Yes. And by the way, we go through the PowerPoint. I include it in the workshop next week.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And so the PowerPoint, and I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint because I feel like a lot of times it dumbs down things. And so I'm not looking to dumb this down, but I am looking to make it understandable to clients. And I don't need to prove how smart I am or how much time goes into this by dropping some 200-page book on, on the desk in front of them, right? So the PowerPoint then, basically starts with the assumptions right up front. Those are the first few slides: inflation assumptions, for future contributions, when they plan to retire, what their spending needs are. And so we start with the assumptions. Then we have the balance sheet in there, that it's just sort of screenshot out of eMoney. So we'll have the balance sheet in there. And then we will go into the Monte Carlo and show the Monte Carlo pages and the mountain chart showing, okay, based on the assumptions on the first couple slides, here's the mountain chart, and it shows you, through age 95 or through age 99. And then we'll also have the Monte Carlo page in there, that has sort of some of the data on the Monte Carlo, And so we'll do that, and then we'll build out the what if scenarios. So that's your base case. But then they'll say, well, what if I retire a couple years earlier? What if I take the package? What if I start gifting to my kids $50,000 a year? And so then we'll do the what if scenarios, where basically then repeat those drill down type slides for the different what if scenarios. And then we get into risk management, which is long-term care insurance and life insurance primarily. And we will stress test the portfolio if there is a long-term care event and you don't have a long-term care funding plan, which in most instances is insurance, right? Then we'll show how incredibly detrimental it is to the portfolio to have a long-term care event. And so then we will model that out, and then we will review the life insurance or long-term care insurance and do analysis around that as well. So those are the things that are popping into my head. I'm sure there's a few others, but and at the end, there's action items, of course.
And this, just to be clear, this is a PowerPoint presentation that is simply, how do you refer internally to this particular slide deck? What do you guys call it?
We call it like the Wealth Match deck, because we have rebranded eMoney to call Wealth Match. So we call it the Wealth Match deck. Oh, and let me just mention one other thing we've added more recently is a tax planning section in that deck, specifically addressing the Secure Act, because large IRAs are obviously a problem, but then also addressing the Biden tax changes. We have a 5-point bulletin that we call it on proposed tax changes, and the Secure Act is the 5th one, which of course is real. And we have been circulating that to our clients, sending out announcements on that, and internally then segmenting our clients to see how the 5 points are affecting each client. So we're ready to address it with our clients. And then we have several slides then in the deck on the Secure Act and potential tax changes.
Yeah. I find that interesting. My early professional career was in the newspaper business, where, in some instances, you wouldn't dive too deeply into a proposed legislation. You might write about it a little tiny bit, but you wouldn't necessarily go so deep because of its proposed nature. But I am intrigued by the fact that you have spent some time to analyze all of your clients, or, at a certain level, analyze the impact that these proposed tax changes would have for your clients. It certainly is a way to communicate to them that you're, it's part of your value proposition. It's like, the subtext is, Debbie's on the ball. Debbie's acting like my CFO. Debbie's got her finger on this sort of thing. I can sleep better and I can feel financially secure knowing that, whatever happens in Washington, we know the details, and we already have fleshed out an action plan to optimize the new situation, which I think is pretty valuable.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a lot of time that's going into it behind the scenes, but this week we're sending out an announcement on the 5-point bulletin. We also sent it out last month. And so we're doing a number of touches around that. And then what we've done is we've created a spreadsheet, and for each of the 4 potential tax law changes, major ones, and then the 5th one is the Secure Act. So we have a spreadsheet for every single client and which of them fall into these danger categories. And some clients, we feel like it's so critical that we're going to do proactive outreach to them individual, even before some of this gets passed. And I think the reason we're doing it, and it is time consuming, but you're right. The subtext is Debbie's on the ball. She's got our back, right? She's trying to see around corners. But what we've also seen on a very practical level is that when this tax legislation is passed, it happens very quickly now. happens very, very quickly. And some of it could be retroactive. And that is constitutional. They are allowed to do that. It's gone to the Supreme Court in the past. And so we want to be ready for these clients that as soon as something happens, because if you remember, the Secure Act was passed in the last 2 weeks of December, and it was effective on January 1st of the next year. It was effective 2 weeks later. And so we want to be ready for our clients that as this legislation gets passed or starts winding its way through, that we're able to have these thoughtful conversations with clients. And, it's interesting. I was reading an article yesterday about the questions that go through a prospect's mind or a client's mind. And it was interesting because the first question is, will you steal from me? Okay. And a lot of times they don't ask it, but many times they do. And then the third question was, will you stay ahead of things? Will you let me know things before I ask you? Right. And to me, that was so powerful, right? Will you let me know things before I ask you? And so, for example, last week, we had a client reach out whose daughter is heading off to college in a month and a half. And she's like, hey, you talked to me once about the HIPAA forms, things like that. Could you get that to me? And I was so irritated that we weren't ahead of that, because we've done that for other clients, said, hey, here's the stuff you need. And so I called my team in and I'm like, we have got to get ahead of this. And so within 2 weeks from now, we're going to have something going out to every family who has a child going to college, advising them about the HIPAA forms and the POAs and the things that they need to do when their 18-year-old leaves, who's not an adult, but is sort of an adult.
Just to clarify for people listening, this is addressing the issue then of the fact that the kid is legally an adult, and therefore parents don't have the ability to pick up the phone and ask the health center at the university what's going on with their child, or how is that what that relates to?
Yeah, and it's a huge issue. I mean, there's been lawsuits over it because some of these kids go off and commit suicide or in trouble, and the parents call out to MIT or whoever, and they're like, hey, we're not authorized to speak to you. And the parents are like, my kid is away from home and is 18 and a half years old. Like, what are you talking about? And so it's a real issue for these parents sending their kids away. I had my daughters sign it before they went away, that I could have access to their records. And so anyway, we're putting together a little kit to get out to those clients within the next 2 weeks.
Right. Is the other aspect of it then, like, in our InHorses Mouth Savvy Caregiving program, which I believe you wrote the deck for that, it was, there was the issue of, well, we want to make sure these end life issues, as bad as they can be, are less bad. And that means we want to be sure that you adult children with your, elderly parents who still treat you like children, nonetheless, that there are things signed like the power of attorney, the advanced healthcare directive, and all those sorts of things. Are you saying, frankly, any adult needs those, regardless of your stage in life, and that that those are being created for the 18-year-olds going off to college as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, everybody needs them. Yes, right. 100%.
Right. Okay, good. So how are we doing on any questions? Any other questions at this point?
Yeah, we do have another question here from, it looks like Cliff. Yeah, Cliff likes to dial in. It's always good to see you, Cliff.
Cliff, we hope you're going to be at the workshop next week.
Yeah, or you're just,
we appreciate you coming on nonetheless, though.
Yeah, and so Cliff says he's charging a separate fee for the financial plan, or is included in the 1%, and he'd like to comment on that. And so this is a great question, right? Because traditionally, and I think this is also the other challenge with financial planning, is we don't know how to charge for things, right? Is from the very beginning, it was like 1% of AUM, right? From like the beginning of time, it seems, right? And we have done a very difficult job, a very poor job as a profession, getting creative and moving off of that. And so it's interesting because, I'm an attorney by training and a CPA, and you see attorneys and CPAs charging all different ways for their professional work. And so I've taken inspiration from the legal profession and the accounting profession and pulled it into the financial planning profession. And more you're seeing the studies now are reflecting that. So whether it's like project-based fees, hourly fees, there are hybrid fees where you have a client that has $300,000, they come to you and they really need a plan, because everybody should have a plan. But you're like, Debbie, this is not a profitable relationship for me if I do a big plan for this $300,000 client, who's got a 1% AUM fee. Well, then maybe do hybrid, right? Take that $300,000 client, charge them the 1% AUM, but then charge them a $4,000 financial planning fee. And what I do for a lot of those clients is I break it up into a monthly retainer. And so basically they sign on and then it gets taken out of their account every month for the next year or whatever to make it, more bite-sized for them. And so anyway, so back to Cliff, right? So fee arrangements are huge. We talk about this next week at the workshop. There's an 80-page white paper on it. There's a lot of talk on it, right? It's sort of moving forward. And you see a lot of studies also that younger people are more in tune with that sort of monthly subscription fee concept, like that Netflix fee. And so again, a lot of changes here, a lot of opportunities, but you got to be flexible in how you approach it. So I will tell you, our typical client is, 1 million plus client, 1.5 million plus client. And so we do include the financial planning as part of their AUM fee, because I'm not a big believer in nickel and diming clients. And again, most of them are coming that are, 2 million, 3 million, million and a half, right? So we include the financial planning fee. But if the client comes in and they're less than like 1.1 or 1.2, if they are under that, then I charge a hybrid fee. So I will still charge the AUM fee, and I'll usually make it a little bit higher, like 1.1 or 1.2%, okay? So I'll usually make that a little bit more, but then I will charge that financial planning fee. And what we have found in the office, we track our hours, is that to put together a financial plan, a pretty basic one, which is still a really solid plan, don't get me wrong, but like our typical financial plan probably costs us about $3,000 to $4,000 if you look at our hourly fees. Now our hourly fees are a little bit on the high side because we're outside of Manhattan. So for my husband and I, it's $400 an hour. And for our support team, it's $270 an hour. And so using that, then a typical financial plan for us, which again is a really good plan, is about a $4,000 fee. And so what we do then when we charge for the financial plan in this hybrid arrangement is we will charge about $4,000, sometimes up to $5,000 as that sort of additional fee. I will say, to add one other thing, is we do have people reach out to us who just want a financial plan. They do not want to give us their investments because they're at Vanguard or Fidelity or whatever. I approach those relationships very cautiously, because a lot of times when those people want to get the cow without buying the milk, right? Is they're like, okay, I want to hire you to do a financial plan. They're usually then think they're the smartest person in the room because they're self-directed, they're Vanguard, they figured out all these angles, right? And so those people typically then, they want to make sure that they're getting every bit of blood and sweat out of you. Then I also find that they're going to try to have us get into other areas because they're not getting a lot of the advice from the Fidelities, the Vanguards, or whatever. And so I am very cautious about how I approach those relationships. And when I do take them on, I'm very clear in our proposal letter about what we will and won't do. And I charge a huge premium. I will typically charge anywhere from like $7,500 to $10,000 to cover us for those people then wanting to get their pound of flesh out of us. So anyway, just another thought there.
No, that's good. I like that. It reminds me of an advisor out in Michigan, Tony LaJeunesse. I've liked the approach that Tony has used to build his business. He was been a dinner seminar person very successfully for quite a while. And coming out of the seminar, he invites people to come in for a meeting that is usually a two-part meeting where he's going to create a in-depth financial plan, one that he describes to me and to the client as something they have never seen in their entire lives. In order to get that plan, you have to have this first meeting where Tony is there with his para planner, and you need to bring a lot of documents to the meeting. And so it's basically collecting a lot of information in the first meeting, and then they schedule the second meeting where there's the presentation of this plan that Tony says represents about 10 to 15 hours of his para planner's time. At this point, everything has been totally free. And they make the presentation to the prospect, and they see the plan. And the options at that point for the prospect are, thank you very much. I'm not going to proceed. And that's fine. They can leave Tony's office, but they don't leave with the plan. Or they become his client, and Tony, makes this clear, early on in the process. They become his client. He charges them, I think, $4,000 or $5,000 for the plan, plus 1.25% going forward. So there's no, there's no gifting going on there in that process. But he is delivering on this promise that, we're going to show you a plan that you've never ever seen before, that no one has ever done for you. And Tony has, as you can imagine, a very, very high conversion rate, because if you are going to supply him with the information and go to this level of trouble to meet with him, you'd be foolish to walk out the door, because he's also personable and he's got a lot of great, like you, he's got a great business with a good team and a lot of processes. So anyway.
Wait, I got it. Can I comment on that or
sure,
no?
Sure.
Okay.
No, go ahead.
I personally, I do not love that approach. So I love that it's working for him. And maybe because he's in the Midwest or his ties to the community, people are very honest out in the Midwest. I don't know. But I'm right outside of New York City. And I'll tell you right now, if we were offering a complimentary plan that my paraplanner was putting 10 to 15 hours into, I think a lot of people would love what we did, would love the plan. And a lot of people would be like, that's the answer I need, that I'm good here as long as I retire at age 67 or whatever. And I think that we might not have his conversion ratio here.
And it is a very in-depth plan. So the idea that I'm okay and going to retire at 65 or whatever isn't, I don't think reflects the quality of what's being delivered. But I get your point.
No. And by the way, I'm not saying that it does. I'm saying some people, that's the thing.
That's the shortcut in their mind.
Right. I'm saying he does our quality plans. No, totally. But I'm saying, I don't know. I don't mean to sound cynical, but being 30 minutes outside of New York City, I see over and over again that there's a certain breed of client out here. And it's different in different parts of the country. And so anyway, that's fantastic. It works for him. And the point I think that we're all trying to make is you've got to develop an approach here that fits for your practice. Absolutely. Right? And so we've developed something that fits for our practice. Like even when we've talked about doing those introductory good fit calls, and that was Sean's brilliant idea to call it a good fit call. Some people will have someone else. Yeah, we have no original ideas, right? Whatever. And so some people will do like a 1 hour meeting in their office as sort of like a introductory thing. I started doing that, but I couldn't get people out of the office. And I didn't like that it was so open-ended. And so then we went to a 15-minute good fit call that of course can run over if it feels right. And that is low commitment on both ends, worked great during COVID. We can also make it obviously a Zoom intro call. And that's been a good sort of middle ground for us. And so the point is that everybody has their way to approach it. You have to do trial and error. Like I tried that 1 hour meeting, that just didn't work for me. And so based on your time, your team, what you feel comfortable doing, and then run with it.
Right. And I think that is a key aspect of the value you'll be delivering at your workshop next week, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for people looking to block out their schedule and attend. And that is that, Debbie peels it all back and lays out all of it. And she's not expecting you to leave that workshop and go and implement 100% of everything that she has presented. The idea is that you can see and learn a variety of things that she has tested and tested repeatedly. What works for her might work for you, but it's up to you to sort of figure out, all right, which one of these pieces can I see would fit nicely into my team's process, or myself as a solo entrepreneur, which one of these things that Debbie's using I can benefit and get a real return on, deliver real value to my clients and get a return on investment for my time, and also return on investment for, the very low fee that people pay to attend the workshop. So anyway, Debbie, any final advice for advisors looking to improve their planning process and client outcomes?
I would say, going back to the beginning, is we need to dedicate it. You need to sort of step away from this hour and say, yeah, this is going to be a big part of my practice, and I'm going to develop the processes around it, the checklists around it, my marketing, my website, my messaging, and even in your approach talk. And so yesterday I sat with a $35 million investment client. coming over self-directed from, one of those branches on the highway, and they had done zero planning. And the husband is 95 years old, and they had done zero planning, nothing, zero. Okay. And so the investments had done extraordinarily well, up 20% last year, right? Happy with the investments, but in an absolute disaster because no planning. And so I know that's a very extreme situation, but I'm using that situation to drive home that right now, when I walk into these discovery meetings, I am closing based on our planning. I am closing based on the tax work that we do. That is how I'm closing. That is the differentiator. That is the thing that people need. And so I would tell you, if you want your practice to grow for the next generation, or something, even if you're planning on selling it in the next 5 years, if you want the best value possible for that practice, then you need to bring this planning in, make it critical, invest in it, and it will reap you a ton of rewards. So that's the one point. The second point is, yes, next week we talk about this, and Sean makes an excellent point, is I will talk to you a little bit about what I'm doing, but I know that there's more than one way to skin a cat, and I'm very data driven. And so I will talk to you about the surveys, the white papers, the data that's out there to say, hey, here's what we're doing, but here are the 4 or 5 other ways that can be done. And then we have conversations in chat. And even at the end of the sections, people come off Zoom and we talk among the group about what's working, and people share. So it's very collaborative, so that you can figure out sort of the best way that makes sense for you in your practice.
Mentioning skinning a cat in front of Max.
I know.
That's really.
I know. My family
really
gets very upset.
it,
I know. My family gets very upset when I say that.
Okay, Doug, how are we doing? Any other questions out there?
No, but Cliff did say that he is attending the workshop and he's looking forward to it. Yep.
Thank you, Cliff. I look forward to seeing you.
And we've appreciated your participation. George McReynolds was out there too. Good, George, good guy. Okay, everybody. Well, thanks so much. Debbie will be available to you, noon to 3 p.m. Monday through Thursday of next week at her new normal practice management workshop, where she peels it back and shows you all the things that she has developed over the years to put her in a position to pitch a 95-year-old client sitting on 30 million plus. By the way, before we go on, Debbie, I do have to ask, was there any, and he's with one of these, bank operations, was there a super glaring financial planning issue that was not addressed that really gave you instant panic?
Many. The guy's 95. They've done no Secure Act planning. They have these huge IRAs. They have no trusts in place. $35 million. No CUPR, no ILIT, no trusts in place. Haven't set up 529 plans for the grandchildren, even though they want to help them with college. And of course, that would get it out of the estate. No estate planning, no deathbed planning, right? So you want him to die with gains in his account, right? None of that. So she has stuff in her account, in her name. He has stuff in his name. Nobody's looked at that. Let me tell you, the only person more horrified than me and the client, or hopefully client, was the financial consultant sitting there saying, holy cow, this is all happening on my watch.
You mean the bank consultant that brought him over?
Yes.
All right. Well, maybe we'll hear more about it, and good luck. We hope. But I mean, really, at that age, 95, I mean, disaster could strike, before I finish this sentence.
I know. I'm losing my mind. I know. I know.
Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thanks so much. And look forward to more Build Your Business series episodes. Some will include Debbie, but we're going to branch out and bring other people in. We enjoy getting on, doing this live stream and hearing from advisors. So keep your eyes peeled for more. And thanks for being here today.
Thanks, everybody.